This was meant to be a year update. However, it's actually been about 15 months since I traveled to Istanbul in Turkey and to the Vera Clinic to have a hair transplant. In this video, I wanted to share my experience since having a hair transplant, following through my recovery phase to the results I have now, the products I've been using in that time, and also what my real thoughts are on the Vera Clinic and having a hair transplant there. So I had my hair transplant in December 2023. I had around 5,000 hair grafts planted into the front and mid scalp of my head. If you want to see more detail what that experience was like, my last video on my YouTube channel will reflect and show you what I went through there. In that last video, I was about 5 or 6 weeks since I had my hair transplant, and I was really going through the ugly duckling phase of post-hair transplant. This is where you have your transplanted hair start to fall out and your head doesn't really look that good. It looks quite bald because you've already shaved off your hair and you've lost the hair that you've transplanted into the new region. Shortly after that video, it was towards the end of February, I'll be honest, I really felt regret on having a hair transplant because at that point, I didn't really see much progress and I was dealing with a lot of the side effects such as the constant itching, which seemed to last forever. It was almost 6 months until the itching on not only the donor area, but also where the transplanted hair was made finally subsided. As well as that, there was numbness into the transplant region, mainly at the front, from where they had put a lot of anesthetic during the transplant. That took almost a year to kind of subside and finally get some more feeling into the top of my head. Now, fast forward another couple months to about April. That's when I kind of finally felt comfortable that, oh yes, I'm seeing some progress in my hair transplant. I was getting more, my hair was growing out. Although it was kind of short at that point, I could see finally that there was growth in the regions where the hair had been transplanted, predominantly on the front hairline, but also in the mid scalp. And I was finally seeing some sort of recovery in my donor area as the hair started to recover and grow in and hide where the donor hairs were taken from. It was about 7 months in post-hair transplant in July 2024 where I felt like I finally was seeing the good progress and more fuller results of the hair transplant. My hair had a lot more density and volume both at the front of the hairline and the mid scalp, as well as my donor area slowly recovering a bit more than it had been in the past. However, even till now, there is some problems in my donor area, but I'll touch on that when I go through my results. The best reflection I can give of 7 months post hair transplant and the progress that was made is I took part in a 10K in London in that July, where I took some footage of what my hair looked like during my run and compared it to a 10K run I actually did in London as well 2 months before my hair transplant. And you can really see the difference. In the footage before the hair transplant, you can clearly see I was missing a lot of density at the front and mid scalp of my head. I was going bald very clearly, receding hairline, and it really didn't look flattering at all. In contrast, when you look at the footage from July 2024, my hair looks a lot fuller, more stable. You can see the density at the front and you can see it holds up really well even after a 10K run. Now, if I talk you through what my hair looks like at the moment, if you look at the front and mid scalp, you can definitely see a lot more density and volume than I had pre-transplant. My hairline is also far more clearer and prominent. So I would say I'm fairly pleased with the results. Although the density I wanted isn't there, it's not quite perfect, but I always had quite thin hair, so it was kind of to be expected that I wouldn't get a full head of hair like I was 16 again. It just wouldn't happen. One area that I'm not so pleased about is the donor area. It has recovered, and when I carry my hair a bit longer, it's not so bad. But as you can see now, where I had a haircut maybe 2 weeks ago, you can still see it's quite patchy where they have taken hair from. It's not quite consistent from the back and the sides. I'd say I'm a bit more disappointed in terms of how Vera carried this out, and it probably reflects, in my opinion, of Vera Clinic now. What I do though is I usually keep my hair a bit longer on the back and sides, maybe a blade 4, just to hide where the donor region has been slightly over harvested in places. The crown region of my head is where I didn't actually have a hair transplant done. I only focused on the front and mid scalp. And at this point, you can see it's very visibly empty on my crown. However, using the medication I have been, which I will touch upon it shortly, I do see some improvement in how my crown looks. The hairs that are there have grown in a bit of density. It doesn't look as bad as it did pre-hair transplant. One thing I did want to mention is over the last couple of months, I have seen significant shedding both in my donor area and where the transplanted hair has taken place. Now, this was quite worrying to me at first, although it subsided a little bit now. And one thing I can point out is probably I did take some creatine supplement, which only for a few days, but it did coincide with when I did start seeing more significant hair loss. Now it has slowed down since I immediately stopped taking it. I don't know if this is going to have significant impact, or even if it did have any impact for me, it may just be a natural shedding phase. It's something I'm going to monitor over the next few months, and maybe I'll post an update if it does adversely affect me. In terms of medication and treatments that I've been doing since post-hair transplant, one of the things I've been using post-hair transplant in terms of medication is topical finasteride and minoxidil in one treatment. This product here from Hims is what I've been using. You take one full droplet of it every day into your hair, you massage it in, and that should do the trick for you. I've used it religiously for the last year. The only thing I would say, I probably missed 1 or 2 days here or there where I've been traveling, that it wasn't always possible for me to use it. However, I've tried my best to stay consistent with this, and I have to say I prefer to take a topical treatment rather than a oral finasteride tablets, purely because of the side effects that have been noted with taking tablets. This isn't as potent or effective as taking a oral medication. However, I've not experienced any sustained side effects with taking this as a topical treatment. You do get a slightly dry scalp, so that's something to watch out for if you have sensitive scalp. Another thing I've used very sparingly is a derma roller. This is a 0.5mm derma roller. I've probably used it maybe once a month, if that. I know I should really be better at using it, and I think going forward, I'll probably use it a lot more, maybe a couple of times a week, or even once a week at the very least, just to see if this makes any positive difference to what my hair looks like. As mentioned in my first hair transplant video, I bought a load of GF shampoo from Vera Clinic. This is something they were quite keen on people buying. I bought 6 months worth of this. One container is actually 1 month's worth. So I bought 6 of these and it cost me £250. And I've not even gone through one of these yet. So in all honesty, I would say it's not for me. I haven't really seen that it's beneficial. I tend to use my own shampoo. Even before having a hair transplant, I always historically had a very sensitive and dry scalp. I was always using T-gel shampoo. Now, you're only supposed to use this maybe once or twice a week. I tend to use it 3 or 4 times a week, just because I felt it helps me avoid having dandruff and a flaky scalp. I've still maintained using this, so I actually use more than I use a GF shampoo. I highly recommend it. It saves me having any dandruff or any scalp psoriasis or flaky skin. I use it in combination with using my topical medication that I've just shown you already. So now, in terms of my honest opinion on my experience with the Vera Clinic, I tend to go back and forth in terms of it was a good experience, it was not so good experience, but I would say overall it was a good experience. It does have some drawbacks. Now, in terms of the actual operation and the people I met when I was there and the communication I got during my treatment, it was very good, very sharp. As I mentioned in my previous video, everyone seemed very competent in what they did. There was a kind of a slick operation before when you get in, it flows very quickly. That downside to that, obviously, as I mentioned, is you don't actually get time to take in what's happening or comprehend, or even think about, should you make changes during the day, maybe in terms of your hairline. I did question my hairline in terms of how the doctor initially wanted to do it. However, I felt that I probably could have pushed back a bit more and insisted on, say, doing my temples on my first hair transplant rather than waiting for a second hair transplant that I may or may not have in the future. I do feel though, in terms of especially my donor area, this is where Vera lets itself down a bit, because you don't have the same doctor who does the design of your new hairline, who examines you, takes on the incision phase, to then implanting those hairs. You have various different people where along the line information can be missed. So say the initial doctor who draws your hairline may have a good idea of what they want your hairline to look like, where the hair should be taken from. Now, it's all good messaging this to your technicians and your nursing assistants, whoever is in the operating theatre, but they may not fully comprehend what the doctor initially expected. And I do feel that may have been the case with myself, because as you can see in the footage I showed you, there has been some over harvesting in patchy areas of my back and sides. It's not the worst I've seen, but it does feel like to me that someone could have done it better if there was a doctor more consistent throughout the whole process. Another area that I thought Vera can do some work is in terms of advice it offers to each of its patients. Now, it felt like to me that it was such general advice that everyone that comes off the hair transplant wagon at Vera Clinic will get the same advice, which is you need to buy their topical treatments that they provide in terms of finasteride and minoxidil. You need to buy the GF serum, and you need to buy the GF shampoo and other vitamins that they offer. Some people may not want to take the oral medication just like myself because of the potential side effects, and others may be totally okay with it, or even that some people may have used some of these products before and had not a great experience with them. For me, they were quite insistent on that I buy the products from them, especially the GF shampoo and the GF serum. However, I kind of resisted spending so much money in buying all of the products. Particularly, I found I can get the topical treatment in the UK for a lot cheaper than they were offering. I can't remember the exact cost that they had, but I definitely remember that what I pay now for my Hims topical finasteride and minoxidil, which is about £150 for every 6 months, is a lot more better value than they were offering. If I was to give the Vera Clinic an overall rating for my first hair transplant, it was on the whole positive. I didn't feel that I was at a loss in terms of skill and knowledge from the people that were taking part in my hair transplant. Although there was bits that could be improved, would I go back for a second time for a second hair transplant? If I'm honest, probably not. I'd probably want to go somewhere now where there is a single doctor that does the whole process start to finish. It may cost me a few thousand more, maybe £5,000 or so. But if I was to do it again, that's probably the direction I would take. In terms of overall rating for Vera Clinic, I'd probably say they're a 7 out of 10 in my experience. I know other people had worse experiences looking online. Other people had a lot better experiences as well looking online. I would say it's a clinic that's definitely worth considering if you are having your first hair transplant in particular, or at the very least, it's worth getting a quote and consultation with them to see if you are eligible to have a hair transplant with them in the first place. Hopefully that's been useful for anyone that's looking potentially at getting a hair transplant or has some questions in terms of what happens post hair transplant, what it's really like, and what are the things to use. If there are any questions, drop them in the comments section. I will try my best to get back to them. I know I haven't been the greatest in the past, but I will try my best as I'm trying to be more consistent with YouTube going forward. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe, share, and like.